If you dared to park on the lonely stretch of Lovers Lane in 1950s Pretoria, you might hear it. The scrape of metal against your car door. Once you stepped out, you'd see him. A dark figure wielding a blood-stained machete. The Panga Man has found you. Welcome everybody to Murder and Mystery Mzansi, where we dive into South Africa's most chilling crimes, unsolved mysteries, and unimaginable tales. I'm Savannah, your host, and just like you, I'm obsessed with true crime, the unexplained, and the downright bizarre. From township legends to high-profile heists, cold cases that still haunt our community, to serial killers who slip through the cracks, we're covering it all. This is Mzansi like you've never seen it before. Subscribe to Murder and Mystery Mzansi on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Patreon so you don't miss a thing. And remember, in Mzansi, even the shadows have stories to tell. This channel discusses real crimes, stories, and sensitive topics. The views expressed are of my own and do not reflect the views of those involved. Viewer discretion is advised. Today, we'll be taking it back to the 1950s in Pretoria, South Africa. Apartheid was in full swing, and the injustices of apartheid bred many criminals, one of which we'll be talking about today. Some believe him to be one of South Africa's most notorious serial killers, but he was never actually convicted of any murders, and no bodies were ever linked to him. So, without further ado, let's get into episode 1, The Panga Man. Phineas Tshitaudzi didn't just attack his victims, he hunted them. The winding roads near the Voortrekker Monument in Pretoria was one of his many hunting grounds. This secluded pass was the perfect spot for couples to park their cars, watch the city lights, and kiss under the stars. Little did they know what was lurking in the darkness. An intimate moment would be interrupted by a scrape, the sound of Phineas dragging his panga, also known as a machete, along the side of the car. The young man would step out, squinting into the darkness. Was it a falling branch, maybe a stray animal? That moment of hesitation was all Phineas needed. As the victim's mind raced through the possibilities, the panga was already slicing through the air. Phineas would then hack away at his arms and legs, leaving him no opportunity to defend himself or his partner. Phineas would then assault and often rape the woman, then grabbed anything of value and fled into the darkness. Some victims were wounded, others lost their limbs, but somehow none of them were killed. Numerous reports were made of the Panga Man by traumatized survivors, and the police were able to put together an identikit. A dark black man, aged 30 to 35, about 1.7 meters tall, with a stocky build and bulging eyes. The racial tensions of apartheid increased fear, with all the victims being white and the perpetrator black. The Panga Man wasn't just a criminal, he had become a symbol of every racial fear the apartheid regime had ever exploited. Tales of the machete wielder escaped Pretoria, and children all across the country were warned to be careful. Otherwise, die Panga Man will get you. Afrikaans was the language spoken predominantly by white families in Pretoria at the time, and they would often refer to him as die Panga Man, whereas in English it would be the Panga Man, as panga is a South African term for machete. His brutality and egotism were terrifying enough, but what truly unsettled Pretoria was how he continued his hacking spree for 6 long years. The police launched raids, set up roadblocks, and even posted undercover cops at various Lovers Lanes locations. Yet still, the Panga Man struck. He wasn't just a criminal, he was a ghost. The worst part? He was hiding in plain sight. He was inside the investigation. Phineas Tshitaudzi was born in the Limpopo province in South Africa. His birth date isn't known, but it's estimated to be sometime in 1913. While some records refer to him as Phineas Tshitaudzi, his real name was Phineas Tshitaudzi. Phineas was born into royalty. The Tshitaudzi clan was a royal family from Zimbabwe, and his great-grandfather had moved to the region south of Soutpansberg around the early to mid-1800s. The family maintained a good relationship with their relatives in Zimbabwe, and even today, some of the family members visit the royal kraal in the south of Zimbabwe. From Soutpansberg, the family moved to a village called Hammanavela, which was located in the west of Louis Tricard in Limpopo. This is where Phineas was born and where he grew up. In 1941, he was drafted along with 100 other men into the Native Military Corps. They were shipped off to North Africa and thrown into the depths of World War II. He was 28 and working as a hotel boy at the time of his enlistment. Many speculate that he returned from war either 1945 or early 1946, after the war ended. However, military documentation states that he was actually discharged on the 15th of July 1944, as he was deemed medically unfit. Records show that he was often sick during his time at war. In 1948, he applied for a War Medal and the Africa Service Medal, which he provincially qualified for. When Phineas returned from war, something inside of him had broken. He became infamous for his drunken rages, and his neighbors were often too scared to visit him, fearing his violent behavior. Hammanavela couldn't hold Phineas anymore, and shortly after returning from war, he slowly drifted to Pretoria. Suddenly, his reputation changed from angry drunk to a symbol of wealth. He'd often visit home on his scooter, bringing gifts with him. When he couldn't visit, gifts were sent by train to Mara Station, which his relatives would collect. While neighbors lived in traditional huts with mud floors, Phineas was able to build a new house with cement foundation and a toilet outside, a first in his village. His wealth also attracted 3 wives who maintained the home, raising his children while he moved between these 2 worlds. Distracted by gifts and affluence, nobody questioned where Phineas's wealth came from. In 1946, Phineas had joined a gang of 5 thieves who attacked couples in Pretoria. Armed with knobkerries, they robbed people in their cars and broke into their homes. But their luck ran out. In 1952, a retired detective gunned down 1 gang member during a botched robbery. 2 more were arrested and sentenced to death by hanging after being convicted of rape, which resulted in the victim's death. The 4th member was sentenced to 12 years in prison for another crime. That left Phineas alone, angry, and even more dangerous. He traded in his knobkerrie for a panga, which he forged himself using a bar of steel. And so, the Panga Man was born. Captain Fred van die Kerk, along with Detective Sergeant Johan Momberg, were appointed as leaders of a special task force assigned to take down the Panga Man. The attacks had spread like a plague from Fountains Valley to Wonderboom, from Klapperkop Fort to the area around the Old Doll's House. Momberg, a hardened investigator, knew traditional methods wouldn't work. So he devised a plan. Traps. There were no women in the police force at that time, so some officers resorted to bringing their wives or girlfriends along to use as bait, while others resorted to cross-dressing, hoping the disguise was enough to fool the Panga Man. 2 Rottweilers were imported and trained to attack anyone that opened a car door from the outside. So if the Panga Man struck, the dog would tear him apart before he even had a chance to lift his blade. Newspapers wrote of the elusive Panga Man, and Pretoria News even offered a reward to anyone who could capture him. This caused major disruptions to the police investigation, as untrained civilians would put themselves in precarious situations trying to lure the Panga Man in the hopes of getting a reward, some carrying only a bread knife or a small shoe hammer as their only defense. Another hurdle in the investigation was the fact that many victims lied about the true nature of the crimes, and a few even provided false names. Many of them were embarrassed, while others were out cheating on their significant other, and they were too scared of the consequences they would face if their partner found out. It's one thing to be brutally attacked, but another to be attacked while committing adultery. One night in Kloppenkop Fort, the Panga Man fell for one of the traps, but he managed to run away before being caught. As he ran away, he fell, and when he stood up, the policeman on duty fired his .25 Star pistol at him. One bullet pierced his ear, while the other buried itself in the muscle of his shoulder blade. He got away. When they reached the spot where he'd fallen, all that remained was a dark stain on the earth, and the chilling realization that the Panga Man was real. But he wouldn't stop. For 82 straight days and nights, Momberg lived the case. He staked out decoy cars in the darkness, then dragged himself back to the station at dawn, reporting for duty again the next day. The traps kept failing and the attacks kept coming. Then one morning, his body betrayed him. He collapsed on the floor, shutting down from sheer exhaustion, and he was hospitalized. While detectives pored over maps and debated strategies in the wachthuis offices, their most wanted suspect was right under their noses. Phineas, the elusive Panga Man, had a brilliant cover. He was working as a cleaner and night watchman at the very police building tasked at hunting him down. As he mopped floors, his ears turned to every conversation about the case. He knew all their plans before they could execute it. While they strategized about taking out the trash, he was the one taking their garbage out. It's even said that General Hendrik du Plooy, the commissioner of police at the time, had once rode an elevator at wachthuis with 3 black men inside. One looked very similar to the Panga Man, according to what they had in the identikit at the time. But because he worked there, the police did not follow up on their suspicion. There was no way he was right in front of them the whole time. As Phineas continued to evade capture, his arrogance grew, and instead of fleeing, he would stay and observe what couples would do next. One couple reported that Phineas threatened to set their van on fire when they couldn't get it started. He even reminded them to report the incident to the police. On the 2nd of May, 1958, another trap was set. Near the Union buildings, Momberg laid in a trap car between the front and back seats, facing the driver's door. Suddenly, the sound of the panga echoed through the vehicle. Sensing something was off, the Panga Man fled, hiding between one of the pillars near the amphitheater. The moonlight shone bright, and as he peeked out the side of the pillar, Momberg saw his face, etched in his mind forever. Fortunately, Phineas's arrogance got the best of him, and on the 30th of September 1959, Phineas attacked a black military recruit and robbed him of his money. The recruit was able to provide a detailed description of his attacker, which matched that given by the victims of the Panga attacks. This information was passed on to Momberg. On the 20th of November 1959, Momberg walked down the corridor of wachthuis and noticed a man cleaning the office floor. He recognized him immediately as the same man he'd seen hiding behind the pillars at the Union Buildings amphitheater. He also matched the description provided by the military recruit. Phineas was arrested immediately and taken to his house in Vlakfontein. What was once called Vlakfontein is now known as Mamelodi. This is where handbags, glasses cases, pens, jewelry, and other items obtained from his victims were found. Now, all they needed was a weapon. Upon noticing a crate with a suitcase atop, the other detective on the scene, Detective Constable Hendrik Mukai, asked Phineas about the contents of the crate. Phineas mumbles something along the lines of "O lappa van die vrou," which translates to "old rags from the woman" or "from the wife." As Momberg lifted the suitcase, Phineas dove towards him in a panic. Momberg grabbed him and Mukai cuffed him. While the crate did actually contain rags, it also contained the panga. Detectives were able to match Phineas's shoe print and fingerprints to those found at various crime scenes. Survivors were called in for an identification parade, and one by one they identified Phineas as their attacker. His day in court came on the 21st of January 1960. He faced 29 charges ranging from rape to attempted murder. There were around 130 witnesses, including survivors, that were called to testify. Some of the charges were dropped, and he was prosecuted on 19 counts. While there is some speculation that he committed murder, he was never formally charged and victims never found. On May 6, 1960, Justice Edwin Roper delivered his verdict. Phineas Tshitaudzi was found guilty of 4 counts of rape, 10 counts of robbery, 3 counts of theft, and 2 counts of assault with intent to commit rape. Phineas's sentences accumulated to a lifetime in prison, but the judge wasn't finished. Due to the brutality of his crimes, Phineas was given the ultimate punishment: death by hanging. On the 14th of November 1960, Phineas walked his final steps to the gallows at Pretoria Central Prison. The bullet from his near capture at Klapperkop Fort still lodged in his shoulder. The noose tightened as he took his last breaths. It said that his final words were to God, asking that every policeman and prison warden die, and that South Africa be returned to black people. The reign of the Panga Man was finally over. 30 years later, apartheid fell and power shifted from white to black, just as Phineas had wished. And so, even to this day, on the quiet corners of Pretoria, you can still hear some parents warning their children, "You better behave, or the Panga Man will get you." Thank you so much for joining me for episode 1. For this episode, I'd like to give a special thanks to the online magazine Nonkai for providing details and photos that was used in this episode. If you have any stories you'd like to share or any cases you'd like covered, please email me at murdermysterymzansi@gmail.com. That's it from me, Savannah, and I will see you all next time for episode 2, A Killer Treat.